Hey, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear me all. Let's just do a quick check in the audience to make sure that we are indeed live. Just want to make sure everyone can hear us before we get started. This is our first presentation of this virtual con. Super excited to have everybody here, and even more excited to have this amazing guest to kick everything off. Great, great. I am getting the okay that we are loud and clear. I'm just going to adjust something very fast here on my end. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, perfect. Apparently, everyone can hear us. All right, so let's get going. Super excited to be back. Not only am I back here with Otherverse, but I'm also back here at Virtual Con. Extremely, extremely excited to be here, be a part of this, and to help kick off this wonderful convention. And what better way to kick it off with this amazing guest that we have here? Longtime friend of mine, a longtime speaker. We had her way back in the day. So pleased to introduce Tyomi Morgan back to our stage. I'm going to introduce her really quickly in case any of you don't know who she is. Tyomi Morgan is a certified sexologist and pleasure coach. And she's also an authentic Tantra practitioner. And she has over 12 years of experience in the sexual health field. Her down to earth approach to sexuality has garnered views of millions of eyes around the world via her advice based YouTube channel and interactive social media presence. And also, she is the founder of the sex ed blog Glamoerotica101.com and creator of the amazing Cowgirl Workout. If you haven't seen that, you guys got to check it out. The only sensual fitness program designed to help women improve their intimate movement and mind-to-body connection. And Tyomi's advice has been featured on several platforms and traditional media publications, including Essence.com, Ebony Magazine, BlackDoctor.com, Huffington Post, Comedy Central, The New York Times, Shape.com, BlackLove.com, Vogue.com, Cosmo. This woman has done it all. She's done it all. I could keep going, but you know what? Instead of doing that, I am just going to hand it off to Ms. Tyomi Morgan. Tyomi, welcome to Virtual Con. So pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. It has been an amazing journey, just like being friends with you, seeing all the things that you've developed over the years, and also being back in the virtual world many, many, many moons ago. I actually had my first chance to speak as a sex educator in the virtual world. So it feels really good to be back here with you all in this space, talking about a topic that I know a lot about. And before we dive into the nitty gritty of things, I just want to give you a little bit more of the background of why I'm qualified to even talk about long distance relationships and how to keep them spicy. So I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And when I was younger, I moved to New York. When I was 19, I moved to New York for school. And I developed a lot of relationships with people, friendships, and some romantic partnerships. And I ended up moving back to Chicago. And even though I moved to Chicago, I did not end those relationships. I kept them going. And so some of those relationships that I first entered into at 19, I still have till this day. My birthday is coming up, November 15th. I'll be 36. So do the math. I have over like close to 2 decades of relationships with some people who I've been at a distance with for the duration of our relationship. And we have been able to not only maintain love and maintain friendship, but also maintain our sex lives. And I will say too that I'm a polyamorous person and I have a few different relationships. And a lot of my relationships can be considered to be like friends with benefits. So that's on the personal side of things. But as a sexologist who's been working in the field for 12 years, I have successfully coached couples who have been at a distance from each other to keep their relationships on track and solid. Now, I will preface this and say that I'm going to be angling this talk with long distance relationships for those who are in monogamous partnerships. Okay, because going into the polysphere would be a lot for the amount of time that we have, and that can be a different talk for a different day. But for those of you who identify as monogamous and you want to know how to maintain long distance relationships, this is going to be a talk for you on how to keep it spicy. Some of the things that I'm going to suggest you probably already know, and you might just get some new perspective on those things, and that's amazing. So I always say, I'm not here to say you're doing anything wrong. I'm always here to give you more tools and more perspective so that way your relationships can maintain the love and the juice and the spice that you want it to have so that you can maintain those dynamics with the people that you love. And I love teaching this because I like seeing people in love. I like seeing people happy. And I like seeing people remaining connected and on the same team. So let's just dive in. What are long distance relationships? These are relationships between two people where they are at a distance from each other. Now, that could be within a distance, either in the same like city or in the same state. So maybe one person lives, let's say, just taking Chicago, for instance, one person lives in Chicago and the other person lives in Woodstock, Illinois. Those are quite a distance from each other. There's at least like 50 miles between them. And so that would be considered a long distance relationship. Sometimes long distance looks like people in two different states or even two different countries. And so the amount of distance does not lessen the effects of having physical distance between two people. And this is where the problem lies for a lot of people who are in love with somebody who may not be living in the same space as them or within a few miles of them. And if anyone has questions of any kind around this topic, or even if you have general questions around sexual health or sexual pleasure, feel free to drop them in the chat. And Anna will be monitoring the chat and we will be taking questions throughout this process. So there are some common issues, y'all, when it comes to, oh, let me double back here. So long distance relationships, who are they for? They are for any person that feels comfortable with being able to maintain relationships at a distance. Some people know themselves and they know that if a person is not physically in front of them, they will not be able to maintain a relationship because it's just too difficult for them to be able to establish an emotional connection. So long distance relationships are for those that I will say have a more developed emotional intelligence, those who have the capacity to be able to stick to schedules and to be able to hold a person in the forefront of their mind where they're not out of sight, out of mind. So if a person doesn't have to be in front of you, but you can still think about them, you can still feel their presence, you can still feel their love, then a long distance relationship will be for you. And listen, I always say just because it exists does not mean that it's for you. A long distance relationship is an option, but you have to be real with self. If you know that you do not maintain relationships at a distance well, don't kid yourself and don't say what the other person wants to hear just to maintain relationship with them in some capacity. If you know you are not going to be able to be there for them in the way that they need, then don't enter into a long distance relationship. Okay. Why do people do this? People do this for a number of reasons. Sometimes their jobs, I'm sorry, there is an alarm going off in the background. Please forgive me for that. So sometimes people enter into long distance relationships because their job or their work takes them away from where their partner is currently living. Sometimes people move because of the military. I see this often where one partner, or sometimes, well, one partner is in the military and then they have to get deployed to work in a different country. And so the relationship goes from them being housed together or nesting together to now living separate. Sometimes there are business trips that may take one partner away from the home for an extended amount of time. Sometimes people are displaced from their homes. And what's really common now is people meeting each other on the internet. So, dating apps and social media. You connect with somebody through the interwebs or in a virtual world, and that person does not live in the same city as you. And so, even though that person is at a distance, you're still developing this emotional connection where for you, you know, being connected with that person means more than them living in that city. So, these are a number of the reasons why long distance relationships happen. And then let's not forget that the pandemic definitely has done a number on all of us where when the world shut down, some people were separated from their lovers. And for those that didn't have lovers at the time, everybody was pretty much shifted onto the internet. And the only way for us to really have human interaction was through the virtual space. And so a lot of people pretty much came into familiarity around interacting with people at a distance because of the pandemic. So we have a lot more people now who are navigating the long distance relationship space. And sometimes it's not easy. So let's talk about the common issues. And Anna, if we have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Yeah,
So
we
that
actually have a question. And funny
awesome.
enough, you're segueing into the common issues. The first question that came up is, how do you handle a situation in a in a long distance relationship where one of the partners becomes envious of the other? And I know you were just about to get to sort of that
This is
part, but
amazing.
yeah, so if you could speak to that, how do you handle that envious part of it?
That's so interesting because that was the first bullet point on my list of common issues, which is jealousy. And so let's talk about envy and jealousy, right? Because these are like two different things. And I'm just going to pull up the definition so that I'm not misquoting, right? So envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, quality, or luck. So if you are feeling envious of a partner who is at a distance, it's time for you to kind of sit with yourself and ask yourself, what is it about what my partner has that I feel that I don't have? That maybe, just maybe, I can do something about receiving that thing myself. Because envy really stems from this place of, wow, my partner has success, my partner has whatever, insert whatever it is that they have that you want. And maybe that's just longing to want to be in the same space as them. And so this is an internalized thing because a lot of times what we do is we will cast or shift the blame onto our partners and make them the enemy because they're the one that chose to be at a distance, whether that is because they chose to take a job or they chose to move away for their mental health or whatever the case may be. And so it's really important not to make your partner the enemy, to not look at your partner as the one that's making the relationship difficult because they decided to leave, to not look at your partner as your enemy and think that they left because they didn't want to be near you or believing the stories that can sometimes pop up in your head around what you think is happening or what you think your partner is experiencing while they are at a distance from you. You might think that you're over here suffering and you're so lonely and you miss them so much while they're over there partying it up and having a good time without you. And that's not always the case. And so one thing that you can do to help calm down the noise in your head that can come up when you think about the distance and all the feelings that come up for you is to communicate with your partner how you're actually feeling. It's okay to be able to express that. So you can go to your partner and say, hey, I'm having these really yucky feelings. I'm feeling like you don't care. Or I'm feeling like you're having fun while I'm over here struggling and suffering because I miss you so much. telling the truth about how you feel, and not just talking about the yucky feelings, but the longing to want to be with them, the longing to want to touch them, the longing to want to be in intimacy with them. Expressing those emotions and expressing exactly what you want from your partner is going to help them to draw closer to you, because they're going to realize that you do care, that you are a part of their life and you want to be and to continue to be a part of their life. If you're going to your partner and you're presenting things as if they're causing an issue because of their distance, or you're projecting all of the ill feelings that you have and onto them as if they are the cause of that, that's not going to cause them to draw closer to you. So with envy, you really have to check your mind and ask yourself, what is it about what they have that I really want? And typically, it's just you wanting to be exactly where they are in that moment in time so that you can actually be close. Now, let's talk about jealousy, because that's a completely different thing. So it's funny because the dictionary says the state or feeling of being jealous. And jealous is feeling or showing envy of someone or their achievement and adventures. So they're pretty much in the same vein. And sometimes jealousy can also pop up when we feel insecurities within ourselves. And it's very easy to fall into feelings of insecurity when your partner is at a distance, because there's so much that they can do for you when they are close to you in reassuring their love for you, reassuring their commitment. And some of us have anxious attachment styles where we have been in situations that have shown us data that people are fickle or people are just going to leave. And so people with anxious attachment styles need a lot more reinforcement. And it's difficult to be able to receive that reinforcement when your partner's at a distance, they may be in different time zones, and then work schedules might not match up. So when it comes to jealousy and envy, there is a lot of self checking that has to happen in order for you to maintain a loving relationship with your partner where you are on the same team and you are on the same page. It's very easy to believe the stories that will pop up in your head around what that person could potentially be doing or thinking or how they could be behaving when you can't see them, when they're not talking about what's happening in their everyday life, so on and so forth. It's really important to not let those stories become reality for you, because I'm telling you, and I know this from experience, okay? If you allow those stories to become real and you begin to project this stuff onto your partner, you're going to be at odds, and it's just going to cause separation. It's not going to cause closeness. So check yourself, be real with self first and foremost. Call it out. I'm jealous right now, or I'm feeling envious right now. But why? Why? Because I really want to be with that person and I'm not there. And my mind's telling me all kind of crazy things that I know are not true. So check in, talk to your partner, and talking to them may look like scheduling a Zoom call so you can see them face to face, or a FaceTime if you are an iOS user, or if you use WhatsApp. This may look like sending a text message. I do not recommend sending like paragraphs when it is a situation that is very emotionally charged. It's best to have the conversation verbally versus putting it into a text, because things can be taken out of context when you write something and it's just like plain. The person cannot hear the inflection in your voice. They can't see the expressions on your face. It's just the words on the screen. So you can text and request to talk to your partner. And remember, like when people say we got to talk, that that phrase is tinged with anxiety. So instead of saying, "Hey, we need to talk," my suggestion would be to say, "Hey, I would love to talk to you later about some things that I'm feeling if you have time, or if that's okay." Because you always want to respect your partner's autonomy and the fact that they do have a choice to choose. and the fact that they do have a schedule day to day that involves things that they have to personally take care of. So, communication, checking in with self, and then also asking yourself, what can you do for yourself in the absence of your partner that will help you to not only reduce these feelings of inadequacy, but give you exactly what it is that you're looking for to feel fulfilled in whatever area you're seeing or you're perceiving that your partner is having all the fun or they're getting all the things. Because there's a lot that you can actually do for yourself. So that's a really big thing. And there are some resources out there, some amazing books that you can find on Amazon.com around dealing with jealousy, because this is a huge thing, not only in monogamous relationships, but in poly relationships as well. And this is something that every single last person deals with. Even I deal with jealousy and envy. I'm not, impervious to that at all. The main thing that I want everybody to remember is call it out. Do not be afraid to say that that's what you're experiencing, because when you call it out, then you can actually go about the process of rectifying that. So I hope that it was like so long-winded, but I hope that it answered your question because there's a lot to touch on when it comes to that.
That
And
that's fantastic, Tyomi. Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
There's actually two questions I have coming in. One I'd really like to touch upon is how do you develop trust in a long distance relationship? And that simply is the question. But even for me, reading that and looking at that, it's a very loaded question. It's
It's so loaded.
how do you develop trust with someone that you're not physically in the room with? How do you do that?
So the first thing is establishing boundaries for yourself and for the relationship. So when it comes to trust, I think what we all can agree on is that if we have the data that shows us that this person can A, respect our time, respect our autonomy, respect our space, and respect our boundaries, then we know, okay, this person is someone that I can feel safe around, because trust and safety pretty much go hand in hand. So when it comes to relationships generally, we want to make sure that we have those boundaries established, and boundaries teach others how to treat us. It's not, we're not putting rules into place, and rules are something that relationships also have, because relationships involve two people. Now, with the boundaries, we don't want to try to police anybody's behaviors. That's what rules do. But the boundaries are put in place so that we tell this other person, hey, this is how I want you to treat me. So a boundary could be, hey, babe, I go to bed at 9 p.m. So if we could talk between this time and that time, that would be great. Because then that teaches that other person, like, okay, if I want to talk to them, I have to make sure that I schedule time between this time and that time. And then when a person goes about doing that and they're conscious of making that time for you, and they do this a number of times, then you can trust that that person not only has the health of the relationship as they hold it as a priority, but you can also trust that they're going to show up for you. And that comes with consistency. Consistency helps to develop trust, and consistency with maintaining the boundaries. Now, when it comes to rules of the relationship, right? A general rule for people who are monogamous is we are each other's primary and sole source of sexual and romantic entertainment, right? And some even go as far as to say we are each other's sole emotional companions. And these are things that honestly need to be spelled out explicitly, especially if you're going to be at a distance. Because we know that we are no longer just dealing in a world where people are interacting with each other in the physical world, but we're interacting virtually as well. And so, if you do have the rule of we are each other's sole emotional support and companionship, then you have to go into the details of what that actually means. Is it okay for my partner to interact with other people virtually where they are sharing their emotional things with? Is it okay for my partner to interact with somebody online, virtually in a sexual way? So, are they allowed to watch porn on OnlyFans and subscribe to people's pages? Are they allowed to have subscriptions to whatever sex workers page they want to interact with, whether that be on Twitter or they're paying for it? Is it okay for Twitter, or like free content, but not for them to pay for it? These are the kind of nuanced questions that I don't think a lot of people kind of dive into when it comes to relationship, even not even at a distance. But when you are at a distance, it's really important to go into that, um, because it's very easy to enter into virtual relationships with other people for emotional support or for some type of intimacy or any form of intimacy when you are at a distance, and then your partner won't necessarily know unless you guys have like a joint bank account or a joint like iOS account or Google Play account where you can see that person's activity. So being able to establish the rules, being able to establish boundaries so that your partner knows how to treat you, and then giving them the chance to be able to show up and also expressing your needs for establishing trust in what that looks like, which again is consistency. Feel okay with saying, hey, I really need to see that you are committed to this. And I'm having some anxiety around trust. And being able to express that and put that into space is really important because that person will understand that it's important for them to show up and be consistent if they want to maintain the relationship. Again, for those with anxious attachment styles, with which a lot of us have, right? For those of us with those attachment styles, we really need to see a person making effort. This can't be some like floaty thing. There has to be a tangible example, tangible, multiple tangible examples of them making an effort to keep the relationship on board. And so, trust for um, some people have blind trust, and a lot of us do. I mean, we trust that, the chairs that we sit in are not going to collapse on us when we sit down. We trust that if we go into our cars and we put the key in the engine or we press, push the button to start the engine, that it's going to start. There are certain things that we just blindly trust because that's just how we're programmed. But when it comes to relationships, there's so many other variables that can come into play, especially when you are in a monogamous situation. You want to be able to trust that your partner has your relationship as the primary focus of their romantic and sexual life, and they're not going to go outside of those boundaries to seek that anywhere else. So it's going to take a lot of communication. It's going to take a lot of interactions with each other and scheduling. And listen, I know it's not sexy because we believe that like sex should be spontaneous and like romance should just be like this spontaneous thing. But when you are at a distance, there is no such thing as spontaneity, especially when you have a few hours in between each other because you're in different time zones. If you live on the East Coast of America and you have a partner that's on Pacific Standard Time, if you try to call them and it's noon your time, it's going to be like the morning for them, like just waking up. So trying to be spontaneous, unless you know they wake up at a certain time, just trying to be spontaneous at any time, you just don't know how that's going to impact their day. So scheduling is going to be really important, and being able to schedule those talks, and not only like just scheduling talks generally, but when you schedule, being able to say, hey, at this time on these days, let's have our roundtable check-ins about things that may be feeling kind of yucky. And then on this day, we have our talks around just the things that we want to enjoy with each other. And then just generally day to day at noon, let's just have a general check in about how our days are going. I know it doesn't sound sexy to be able to like to have to put a schedule together, but it's sometimes easier to see on a calendar like, okay, this is our hard emotional check-in on Friday. So I have to prepare my mind for that. So that way your partner and you are not blindsided by things. Like you think you're going to show up and talk to your partner and be all happy-go-lucky, and then they're coming to you with something that's coming up for them, something that is, trauma driven that's coming up. And now the whole conversation is being turned into something else. So being able to pinpoint the types of conversations you're going to be having when you communicate on your schedule can help to really just solidify those things. So trust is going to take time. It really is. And a lot of it too is trusting ourselves to believe what our partners are telling us when they say it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely.
That's
100%.
hard.
That is so hard. Trusting yourself is one of the hardest things. And I will say this, there's some chairs I've looked at and gone, mm-mm, I don't know about that chair.
Oh, trust me. As a woman with a big ass, there are some chairs where I'm just like, nah, that's not going to
Mm-mm,
work.
not
You
today.
have to trust your intuition. Intuition
Trent.
is really big.
So let's take this a little bit. You kind of mentioned the sort of the sexy side. So let's take this conversation just really quickly here, and some of the questions that were coming in has to do with the intimacy side of it. So let's steer this just for a moment before we get back into the serious side. But let's steer it into the intimacy part, the fun part, the sexy part. How do you keep a long distance relationship spicy? How do you keep it going? How do you keep it sexy? How do you keep it fun?
So this was literally the next thing on my list. I just
Look at
love how
that.
it's flowing, like,
It's flowing. It's perfect.
it's kismet. So a lot of us, I mean, humans generally, like physical touch is something that we crave. It's like a part of our human design. So when you are at a distance from your partner, you're not going to be able to get that regularly. The one thing that I always suggest, if it is in your budget, is to schedule trips to see your partner. Like, who wouldn't want to take a vacation or go somewhere else? And you can always do it where one partner comes this time, then the other partner comes the next time. And if you are a person that's a frequent flyer and you have miles or points, or if you have friends that have buddy passes or whatever, then it can be a lot easier to travel via plane because you have those hookups, right? So putting it on your schedule to see each other physically for a few days at a time is a great way to be able to keep things spicy. And then what's great is that you only have a small window of time, whether that's like 2 days or a whole week, to be able to get everything in with that person physically that you want to get in. So create a schedule for yourself of all the things that you want to experience. I remember I had a partner that was going to be moving to uh, somewhere in Armenia, moving to Armenia. And this was like a fresh partner of mine. And I knew that when he moved to Armenia, that our relationship would probably not continue because he told me flat out, I don't do long distance relationships. I was like, fine, let's just enjoy each other while we have each other. And so I planned an entire week for us to do 10 things that he's always wanted to do for himself. And it was the most fun week because they were very simple things like go to a drive-in movie, like things that he knew he wouldn't be able to do in Armenia. Like eat certain foods that were his favorite foods, go to like his favorite lounge, go bowling, like put together this whole list of things for us to do. And we had amazing sex, of course, throughout the entire week. And so this is something that you can do with your partner is just put this schedule together, make it fun, and then you will create memories that you will have forever. Now, in between being able to visit each other in the physical, you definitely want to get on a sex schedule. And of course, your sex is going to be digital. So there's phone sex, of course. And then there's virtual sex where you can interact with each other through video chat. Now, in interacting with each other through video chat, you can use app driven toys where One person will have the app on their phone and they can control the pulse and the speed of the toys. If you're not into teledildonics and using technology on that end of the spectrum when it comes to keeping things spicy, then you can play a game where one person talks the other one through it, or you talk each other through it. And a lot of times it's going to be mutual masturbation when you are interacting with each other sexually. And if you don't want to be on camera doing something together, then you can send each other toys and you can do it old school style and handwrite a letter with instructions on how to do this thing. You can also send audio messages with what are called jerk off instructions or like masturbation instructions to instruct your partner on how the process should go for them, or even tell an erotic story. However, your partner is aroused, whether it's receiving instructions or hearing an erotic tale that's going to get them off, you can use your imagination and just be creative and put those things into practice. But it's going to be scheduling your sex, using toys, using your imagination, using phone and video chat, even sexting to keep things spicy, and then making that time to actually go see your partner in the physical space. So that way you can touch each other, you can smell each other, and you can have physical intimacy, even if that's just like once every few months, whatever's in your budget, just make it work and just have fun with it. You can shop online together when it comes to your toys and choose things for each other, have them wrapped up nicely and sent to each other's homes. These things are going to take work. The schedules, the booking of the flights, the sending of the toys, all these things, even books, like sending books, sending courses that you could take together, setting up virtual dates, all of these things are going to take work. And a big part of it is having an expansive erotic imagination to be able to enjoy these things at a distance the same way that you would in person. Anna, did we have any like follow-up questions from that?
Actually, we have a question though, and it's kind of about coming to the end here.
Sure.
The question that I got, and actually accidentally I got booted from the virtual world, so I'm trying to get back in, but I do recall what it is. And the question is, how do you tell somebody when you want the relationship to be over without hurting them too badly? So how do you let someone down gently? How do you everything kind of has to come to an end at some point in some kind of way. So how do you do that? And I know that's sort of an abrupt thing after we're coming out of this really nice, spicy sort of section here, but how do you let someone down gently when you're in a long distance relationship?
Well, you know what? Sometimes things they burn really hot and then they fizzle out quickly, and that's just how life works sometimes. And so, um, this is like a perfect segue because we are pretty much at the end of the seminar. But letting someone down, and I want to let you all know this. We say like, oh, we don't want to hurt the person, right? And we do know that intention and impact are two different things. And so if you go into the conversation, number one, with realizing that this is your personal autonomy and you do have the right to be able to end things when you want to end things. Okay, that's number one. Number two, understanding that how you deliver a message and even just delivering the message and saying that you want it to be over instead of ghosting is really healthy. You are not a bad person for making it very clear that you want a relationship to end. Number three, making it about you and your decision to want to end things and not about that person and what they could have done better or whatever they did to like push you away. Don't make it about that unless that person comes to you and they want to have the answer to, well, why? right? Because the why question is then going to extend the conversation into now being able to explain if there is any reasoning from like interactions with them that you no longer want to be in relationship. But at the end of the day, the relationship ending, if that's what you want, is your personal decision. And it has everything to do with where you want to go in life, what you want to experience in life. And sure, things that that person have done may have influenced you wanting to move away from that, but keep it about you. Keep it about your decision. And if they ask, then be prepared to deliver the why as gentle as possible. I would highly suggest everybody look up nonviolent communication because nonviolent communication focuses conversations when there's conflict in the middle of it. Because we know that sometimes like this breakup conversation can cause conflict, but it focuses on observations instead of judgments. And this is why I suggest making the breakup conversation about you and what you want versus casting judgment on the other person. And if that other person wants to know, then you just let them know what you have observed in the relationship and then how it impacts you. And that's why it, and how it impacted your decision to want to end things. This is never an easy conversation to have. No one wants to be on the end of saying, this is done. But if you honor yourself and you honor what you need for your life to feel happy and to feel joy, then you're not going to be wrong in that. Just be compassionate and empathetic in how you communicate and thank them for the time that you spent together. Because even if things like ended up sour, it wasn't always that. There were good times. There was pleasure that was experienced. There was happiness that was experienced. So thank them for all of that. Wish them well. And if this is not a person who is like crazy out their mind or toxic, then leave the door open for friendship because friendship is at the basis of all relationships, like all romantic relationships. So that's the best advice I can give you around ending it. Endings are not always easy, but on the other side of that, there's so much more waiting for you. And I hope that the things that we spoke about today shed some light on how to maintain long distance relationships for those that are currently in them or are entering into them. And if you want to reach out to me at any time, feel free to do so. I am on Instagram at Real Glamazon Tyomi and on Twitter at Glamazon Tyomi. And you can always reach me if you want to have a session with me one to one. You can go to calendly.com/Tyomi and you can find all of my services there. I appreciate you all for listening, for being here at this conference. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Universe, for having me. This has been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tyomi. As always, it is always an honor and a pleasure to have you here. I know the audience learned a lot. I sure did. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Any last words, any last things you want to let everybody know? Anybody else?
If there is anybody in the world that is in New Jersey, physically in New Jersey this weekend, the Exotica Expo, which is the largest sex event in the world dedicated to love and sex in the USA, we are live starting 5 p.m. today, and we go from Friday until Sunday. Friday is Ladies Free Friday. So if you identify as a lady or as a woman, you can come through, you get in for free. We have over 150 stars, we have performances, so many vendors, so many things are going to be happening this weekend, and an entire free seminar series that is coordinated by me.
Mm-hmm.
Please come out if you are in New Jersey. It's going to be an amazing time.
You heard that. So if you're in New Jersey and you actually want to meet Tyomi live today, this woman is working hard. She's at 2 conferences right now, here with us and in person at Exotica in New Jersey. Go check her out. Go meet her. Thank you, Tyomi, for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule. We'll make sure everyone gets your social media links, your posts, and if you want to book a session with her, please, guys, go do it. Tyomi is amazing. Once again, Tyomi, always a pleasure. Thank you so
But my
much.
pleasure is mine. Thank you, Anna. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.